All right, guys. So this is, in fact, a True School Sports special report. And please, to the viewers out there, bear with me. Go get a snack. Really settle in because this video might be a bit long-winded. I have a lot of things to discuss and a lot of things to flesh out and get out there in regards to this fight game and the truths of this fight game and the moving parts of the boxing world that have to be talked about, right? So this video is going to be about a really important topic that I think is going to affect boxing in the future, right? Even though it's not directly tied to boxing, it still kind of is, right? And that's the subject of the fact that the Saudi Public Investment Fund, they are on the verge of pulling out their investment from LIV Golf. Now, for those of you who know, for those of you who don't know, LIV Golf was a separate entity that was started up about 5 years ago, separate from the PGA Tour, right? That we all know, Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson and all those great golfers. You know, that's the American company. That's the dominant company. That's like the WWE of golf. Well, LIV Golf was funded by the Saudis, and they've been doing their thing for a couple of years now, and they really exploded over the last couple of years because they've been able to take a lot of the top players from the PGA Tour and get them over to LIV Golf. Now, the reason why this is significant is because I believe if the Saudi Public Investment Fund is to pull their investment from LIV Golf, that presumably they could pull their investment from the sport of boxing. So we're going to dissect that and how all this ties together. So just bear with me, please. So the Saudi Public Investment Fund, guys, they had $150 billion, right? That they started off with in 2015. And the Saudi Public Investment Fund is basically something that the Saudi government uses to pump money into other avenues to make more money for the Saudi economy, to improve life of the Saudi Arabian people in their country, and things like that. They started off with $150 billion in 2015, and you fast forward 11 years to 2026, they took $150 billion and they turned it into $900 billion, right? So they've done pretty good with their money. They've been pretty shrewd business people with their money. Now, in regards to LIV Golf, since 2021, they have pumped $5.3 billion in LIV Golf in investments. And when the money got low earlier this year, they pumped an additional $266.6 million back in February of this year. Now, they did this because LIV Golf has been losing money. And contrary to popular belief, I know people say, well, the Saudis have this endless amount of money, this endless bankroll. Listen, the Saudi Public Investment Fund is to invest to make money back, not lose money. So even though they got money to burn, they're not in the business of burning money. Let me repeat that again. Just because the Saudis got money to burn, they're not in the business of burning money. Nobody is. Who the hell likes losing money, right? So there's that. The LIV Golf CEO came out recently, and he stated pretty much that LIV Golf is not sustainable in terms of profit, that he won't profit. LIV Golf will not profit in the next 5 to 10 years. So that's where all this chatter of the fact that they might pull their investment from LIV Golf by the end of the season tournament, and I believe the season tournament runs through till August, right? So there's that. And there's a lot of moving parts of this because it's not just about money. It's not just about profitability or lack thereof. There's other moving parts in the world that are affecting this. You know, not to get too political, but I got to get political a little bit. There is a war in Iran that is upon us. And that's one of the things that's triggering this pull, or this rumored pull, of the Saudi investment from LIV Golf. You know, the Saudi economy is essentially going to get screwed because nobody's going to want to travel to Saudi Arabia anymore because it's not safe, because there's a war. There's a war with Iran, right? You know, there was a bunch of airstrikes. Donald Trump, there was some airstrikes a couple months ago over there in Iran. A war is impending, right? But it's crazy because it's all intertwined to boxing, and I'm going to tie it in, so just bear with me. LIV Golf events, the LIV Golf events happen a lot of the time at Donald Trump golf courses. So Donald Trump, our president, he profits from LIV Golf. And by the Saudis pulling their investment from LIV Golf, essentially what they're saying is it's a big, you know, kind of like fuck you to Donald Trump, and it's their way of, you know, slowly but surely disassociating themselves from Western culture, from just the West, because we know that the Saudis have been using the West to try to rebuild the image of their country, i.e., sports washing, right? So they're angry about the airstrikes in Iran. They're being dragged into a war. They're trying to fight fire with fire and get back at Trump, right? So how does this pertain to boxing, and how does it affect the fight game long term? Well, we know that Salah. Now, for those of you who know, for those of you who don't know, Salah is they're a company that's owned by the Saudi Public Investment Fund, and Salah also happens to own 60% of Zuffa Boxing. And I would even say, even though they own 60%, it's really more of that, because Salah, they're the ones that handle the day-to-day operations of Zuffa Boxing, as far as, like the expenses, the payroll, the utility, the rent, the marketing, the legal fees. That is their responsibility. Now, Salah, which is backed by the Saudi Public Investment Fund, they work in conjunction with TKO Holdings, which we all know is spearheaded by the likes of Dana White, Ari Emanuel, Nick Khan, and the real heavy hitters of the combat sports industry, the guys that have already got a monopoly on wrestling, the guys that already have a monopoly on MMA, and they're in the process of doing that with boxing, right? We know with all the changes to the Muhammad Ali Act, that's also, they're trying to do the same thing in boxing. Now that you guys know about, the percentage splits of who is really funding Zuffa Boxing, we can tie it into what's going on with boxing long term and how this affects boxing long term. Now, the Saudi Public Investment Fund, they recently revealed their new strategy, starting now in 2026, as far as what they'll be investing in, what sectors of the business they'll be investing in. And those things are as follows. You have tourism, travel, and entertainment. You have urban development and livability. You have advanced manufacturing and innovation. You have industrial and logistics. You have clean energy, and yeah, you have that, right? And now, nowhere in there was sports outright listed, but that could probably fall under, tourism, travel, entertainment. But a lot of people are worried because boxing and sports was not outrightly named, and so now there's this growing concern that the Saudis will pick up their toys and leave, and they will pull their investment. I've been telling you guys this for a lot of years. I've been telling you guys. I remember in 2023 when Turkey Al Sheikh and the Saudi entertainment, when they really started popping off and just splashing the cash around, and when all these supercars started going to Saudi Arabia. I told you guys what it was. I said, look, these supercards, enjoy them. They're a moment in time, but this is not sustainable. And just because the Saudis have money to burn, they're not in the business of burning money. Nobody is, right? So inevitably, there was going to have to be a pullback and a plan where things could become more sustainable for the Saudis and the fight game itself, right? Now, look, just because sports wasn't named in the Saudi Public Investment Fund strategy, it doesn't mean that Turkey, it could mean that. I'm not saying it can't mean that, but the Saudis are already invested in boxing, if you think about it, because they own a majority stake in Zuffa Boxing. They own a minority stake in DAZN, and Turkey Al Sheikh outright owns the Ring magazine. So I think the Saudi investment in boxing is kind of already there. It's already there, even if they don't outright name it as a priority for their own public investment fund, right? That's how I feel. Now, look, the way that I feel this affects the fight game, it's going to be only one of two things, all right? It's only going to go one of two ways, and there's going to be no in between. Now, the most realistic scenario, I feel, and I felt like this for a lot of years. I've been saying this since 2023. While everybody was busy telling me, BT, at least you're getting the fights. At least you're getting the fights. I was saying, look, man, this is a moment in time. This is not sustainable. Boxing has to get to a place where, we the best fight the best, because it's of merit. Merit and marketability must dictate the best fight the best, not because some Saudi Arabian genie wants to wave his wand around and say, hey, let's just go do this fight in the pyramids and Alcatraz and all this stuff. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way, right? So merit and marketability must always dictate who fights who at the highest levels of boxing, and nothing else, right? Those are principles of American capitalism, and I've always believed that American capitalism, in the end, will always prevail. You must eat what you kill to succeed in life, right? I believe in that. That's a very American way of thinking. Now look, I feel like the market, if Saudi pulls their investment from the sport of boxing, the boxing promoters, the market itself, it's going to have to go through a correctional period. You know, the American promoters such as PBC, Top Rank, Golden Way Promotions, and even Matchroom Boxing USA, they're going to have to start putting on the best fights and paying guys what they're actually worth. Which also means that there will be no more artificial pay for the fighters. You know, if you're a fighter and you can't draw flies, or you're not a marketable fighter and you don't put any extra leg work when you're not fighting to promote yourself, you will pay for it, because in this day and age, you must promote yourself. You must be out there on Front Street, and you will not have that dependency on Saudi money. And promoters and fighters alike are going to have to eat what they kill based on a merit and marketability. American capitalism will prevail once again. Now, the reason why I think this is good is because a lot of these fights that can't happen due to codependency and too much dependency on Saudi money can now happen. They can now happen because fighters will, instead of fighters thinking that, hey, I just need one big Saudi payday, they can now start thinking that, okay, I have to fight in these big fights for my legacy, so I can get the paydays, so I can get to the level I want to get to. And as a byproduct of that, the boxing fans are going to get more great fights. Look at, I mean, there's been plenty of fights that have not happened because of this whole Saudi involvement. Dave Benavidez hasn't been involved in a big fight, right? He was supposed to fight Bivol Beterbiev. He still hasn't gotten those fights against Bivol Beterbiev. You know, people complain about the featherweights not being able to unify and not unifying and these kind of things. I haven't seen Turki Al-Sheikh stage a featherweight unification type tournament where guys like Angelo Leo, Rafael Espinoza, Bruce Carrington, and Brandon Figueroa are getting paid handsomely. I haven't seen none of that. So my thing is, they've done some good things. I won't say they won't. They've been very good for certain fighters. But overall, the Saudi money and the Saudi presence in boxing has diluted the boxing market, fighter pay, and everyone has unrealistic expectations all around the board. And the sport has lost a lot of life, I feel, right? And now it's great because now boxing can come back to the places they're supposed to be in, like Las Vegas, like LA, like New York City, like Japan, like Mexico, and things like that. Those are the you know, and London and the UK as well, for the great British fans as well. You know, a lot of those markets have been getting destroyed and diluted because of Saudi's presence in boxing. So obviously, if they pull their investment, I feel like this was going to happen. Now, the alternate possibility here, if Saudi is to pull their investment from not just boxing, but let's say other sports. Listen, Turki Al-Sheikh already has investments in boxing, with Zuffa being a majority stakeholder, a minority stakeholder in DAZN, and outright owner in Ring Magazine. So he already has infrastructure in place. Now, it is possible Saudi could pull their money from other sports and actually pump more money into boxing. That is possible too. Turki Al-Sheikh, you know, could bankroll Dana White even more money, and Zuffa Boxing would really just have the boxing game on a Cobra clutch, because at the end of the day, fighters want to go where they can be seen and get paid the most money possible so that they can leave the fight game with something for themselves. You understand? So it is possible. I could see that. And when you factor in that the Muhammad Ali Revival Act, which is going to create a unified boxing organization, bringing the UFC style model of business to the sport of boxing, it is very possible that more cash could be pumped into boxing, and a real monopoly could be upon us. You know, the fact that that's already in legislation, it's making progress in legislation. I could see a scenario where, you know, they really pump more money into boxing and they just outright continue this road towards a potential monopoly in the fight game. But for the fighters out there, right? Because I know a lot of fighters watch these videos. So if you're a fighter out there, whether you're a champion, contender, high level, low level, this is my advice, all right? True School Sports consultation tip, free of charge. Once again, I'm a man of the people, right? I don't care if the Saudis keep their investment in boxing, and I don't care if they pull it. But if you're a fighter right now, what you need to be thinking to yourself outside of the ring, apart from just, you know, training and winning your fights and things like that, you need to think, okay, what can I do as a fighter to enhance my commercial value and market myself? You know, what kind of people could I put around me that I trust, that could help me, outside the ring, build my profile. That's how you got to think, because at the end of the day, being a marketable fighter and being someone that the fans are emotionally invested into, whether they're Saudis or not or no Saudis, that's always going to win. Being a marketable fighter who people care about is always going to win. So obviously the big fight is in the ring. You got to focus on that and handling the business on the paperwork and things like that. But apart from that, the other fight that fighters got to think about winning, especially the prospects and upcomers out there, you have to, figure out, and you have to start thinking, okay, how can I market myself? How can I get my name out there more so that more people care about who I am and want to watch me fight? So I don't gotta be on the wrong end of the business side of boxing. That's just how that's how I feel, and that's where I'm coming from. So that's the news, guys. LIV Golf is considering pulling out their investment. Or the Saudi Public Investment Fund is on the verge of pulling out their investment for LIV Golf. This could be a potential sign of what's to come in boxing. And if they don't outright pull everything away from boxing, like I thought they would for all these years, they might pivot and just pump more money into Zuffa boxing, because now they have more infrastructure with this Muhammad Ali Revival Act going through legislation to potentially run a monopoly on boxing. So it's gonna go one of two ways. We'll see how it goes. I'll be covering every angle over here on True School Sports. But I hope you guys got something from that video, and if you gotta watch it again and again and again to fully grasp what I'm saying, watch it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and call your friends and break it down with them. But that's the news right now, and I do think that LIV Golf potentially going out of business, having the Saudis pull their investment from them, it could have serious repercussions in the future in our beloved fight game and our beloved sport of boxing. So I'll leave it at that. You can leave your comments down below. Make sure you guys take the time to subscribe. And like I say in every single one of these videos, you can love me or you can hate me, but I'm just a kid from Daniel. So until next time, take your guys. You want to say hello? Say hello. Can you say hi, Boxing World?
Hi, Boxing World.
Can you say True School Sports?
Truth? Oh.
Can you say True School Sports? Say True School Sports. Can you say The Untouchable? Can you say The Home of Boxing? The Home of Boxing.